I am Latanya. I'm the founder of Empowered Wellbeing. We are a health and wellness community that is dedicated to trauma survivors. At Empowered Wellbeing, I am a trauma-informed yoga instructor and an integrative holistic wellness coach. And this is where I come in to really help my clients integrate and become one to really connect with their bodies and connect with themselves. Our mission right now, we are on a reporting blitz. I'm here to tell you, and I have some very, very, very impactful people that I have been able to connect with, and I'm so thankful that they are taking the time out. And throughout over these next few weeks, we are going to dive into different forms of trauma. We're going to dive into different type of modalities, and they're going to talk from an expertise perspective. So today I have Devin with us, and I'm going to let Devin introduce herself.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the podcast here. Hello, everyone. I'm Devin. I am a registered clinical counselor located out of British Columbia, Canada. I am primarily a grief and loss specialist who has a strong focus on trauma support in that realm. So I'm so thankful to be here and to be able to speak about some of the trauma modalities that I work with and how it's helpful for people in the work that I do.
All right, that is awesome. All right, so getting right into our first questions. We have some questions that we're going to ask Devin, and she's going to help guide us. The whole purpose of this is being able to bring awareness to different modalities that we don't know about. I want to be able to help expose people so they can see things from a different perspective. And our mission is just really to empower and inspire you guys so that you can really live a life with no regret and full of life. So right into our first question, Devin. Can you explain what EMDR is and how it works to help individuals to process trauma?
Absolutely. Yeah. So EMDR is a therapy. The acronym stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a trauma therapy that was developed by a woman by the name of Shapiro. And she created this in noticing that when she was walking through the forest, struggling with some stuff that was going on, that her eyes started to move back and forth. And all of a sudden, she felt better about what she was experiencing. And she thought that was really interesting. So she went back. She worked at a university. And so she went back and started testing this and noticed that moving her eyes back and forth, and other people's as well, that all of a sudden, the distresses that they were struggling with and the issues they had were kind of feeling easier to manage. And so into some research and lots of trials and testing, and they ended up coming up with EMDR. And it is known to be a trauma therapy that helps to folks to alleviate any distress associated with traumatic memories initially. So things like PTSD or acute traumatic incidents. But it's also been extended now to things with like anxiety and depression, OCD. So it can help a variety of different mental health concerns and grief and loss as well.
Oh, wow, that is awesome. And good a way to think about it. I've done a little research on it, but not a whole bunch. But I think you kind of explaining it really for sure helped me to see it from a different perspective. What are some common types of trauma or emotional challenges that EMDR is most effective in treating, and how does it differ from traditional talk therapy?
Oh, yeah. So for anybody who's been through talk therapy before, you might be familiar with kind of coming into the office or meeting your therapist online, having a conversation around the things that are going on in your life or the concerns that you're wanting to focus on, and really focusing a lot typically on the emotions, maybe the thoughts and the actions or behaviors that you've been doing, and seeing what they mean to you, how they interact, what you can change about them, how you're feeling in your body. It's a really gentle, slow process that allows you to be really self-reflexive and get to know yourself and your situations a lot more. Now, it's beautiful for a lot of different life situations to be able to have that slow, gentle process and to be able to really be integrated into your thought patterns and connect with your emotions. And yet, when we have really traumatic experiences or things that feel really scary to touch, that seems really daunting. And it can be overwhelming to the idea that you would want to go through all the details and the emotions and the experiences of traumatic events in a typical talk therapy perspective. So EMDR really breaks that challenge in allowing you to process your experiences without having to do all of that talking. EMDR is a process where you notice a body sensation, or you notice the very last thought, or maybe you just hold an image in your mind, But
Mhm.
you pause that, you hold on to it, and then you follow the eye movements and you do the bilateral stimulation, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a few minutes, but it allows you to process it non-verbally. And in doing that, you don't have to go through all of those pieces. You're actually
Mhm.
allowing your brain and your body to have the conversation within itself so that you don't have to do all that emotional work.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So most of the time you see it, again, like I said, it's in PTSD, an acute stress disorder, anxiety, depression, dissociation, some OCD.
Mhm.
You'll also see it utilized sometime for single traumatic events. So maybe you don't have a formalized mental health disorder, but you witnessed a car accident, or there was a medical trauma that you experienced, or you witnessed something horrific.
Mhm.
Maybe you've witnessed a few things or experienced a
Mhm.
couple of traumas in your life. EMDR can be really great for addressing those pieces so that you can continue living the life that you want to live and you're not overwhelmed or bogged down by the images, reminders, flashbacks of what has happened and what you witnessed. So it is a little bit of a quicker space with a lot less talking and hopefully a result in a much cleaner experience on how you get to navigate and move through the world.
Okay, no, that's really it's definitely different. So when I first started my healing journey, I did start with talk therapy first. And
Yeah.
I do remember, and they call, I think you guys call them like therapy hangovers, because I got home and I'm like, why am I so tired? What is this? And I'm just one girl. I'll go, listen, I'll go find it. I'll go figure it out and I'll find it. I'm like, something isn't right. And I started reading,
Mhm.
I'm like, therapy hangovers is real, but it is because during those sessions, that was when I was really peeling back the layers of being molested as a child growing up. And it was going through all of those emotions. And when I would get home, almost after every session, I was done. I
It's
was
really
completely
hard to
done.
walk through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. No, it really is. So it's a real thing. But this seems a little bit more gentler in a sense, I guess maybe. Would you think that it's a little bit more gentler than
I would say it's kinder. I just find, and
okay.
it's not going to be for everybody, but for situations where maybe this is an experience that has been really impactful, where you know that you don't want to be stuck with this and it's impeding your
Yeah.
life, you want to let it go, but you don't want to have to walk through all the bits and pieces of it, all the details, all the emotions, all the experiences of it. EMDR can be that really nice way to do that work without having to feel like you have to face every little bit of it
Yeah.
with somebody witnessing you.
Yeah.
I will say that the therapy hangover piece can still happen from EMDR, but it comes
Mm.
across in a different way. It's not necessarily such an intense and long hangover because you're actually taxing your working memory. And that's why you end up being so tired from EMDR, is because your both sides of your brain are rapidly communicating with each other, trying to make sense of the pieces that have been disconnected. And so your brain is hurting, like it is tired. It has done so
Running.
much work. It's run a little bit of a marathon here and it needs to rest. Of course, there's the emotional component of it that comes up as
Yeah.
well. But for the most part, it stems from just being mentally exhausted and
Mm-hmm.
processing.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a piece that you are going to be tired from it. And, after your sessions, I would say definitely for the day after your EMDR sessions is where you want to rest and digest, have some calming, soothing practices, maybe an easier rest of your day. But it's not something that should be lingering day after day after day, waiting for you to
Right.
get to your next therapy session.
Right. Okay. All right. So for someone who has never experienced EMDR, what should they expect during their first session? How does the process typically unfold?
I love this question simply because I find that there can be such a fear when I talk about EMDR with folks. They're like, I'm going to come in and we're just going to get straight to it. No, absolutely not. That would be so cruel and also very irresponsible of me
Yeah.
because there is a really big component where no matter what therapy you do in counseling or any type of therapy that you go to, the most important piece in your success is your therapeutic alliance with your therapist. And so the first and foremost is I would always want all my clients to make sure that they feel safe and comfortable in my space and with me, and they feel confident that I can hold them through that process.
Mhm.
And I really advocate for this. Anyone who's ever going to look to go through therapy, if it's not a good match, try again. There's tons of therapists out there, and we're not everybody's cup of tea, right? Like, you don't go into school and make friends with absolutely everyone and everyone's your best friend. The same goes with therapy. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of trial and error to find the right fit. But once you do, that work can move mountains simply because you feel comfortable in that space. So that's what you really can expect in your first session is you want to get to know your therapist and you want to start to build a relationship with them if you've never been in a relationship with that therapist before.
Right.
If you have, sorry?
No, no, no. That's no. It was just so compassionate in regards to. I think the biggest thing is making sure that people feel safe. That's the biggest thing, of course, when you've lived through traumatic experiences. So it was just really compassionate, just the way you said
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And I appreciate that because I would never want someone to think that they came into my space and said, I have to do this and I don't feel comfortable.
Mhm.
No, then we
Yeah.
don't do this. I help you find somebody that feels like a safer fit, or we spend some more time together and we do some more grounding experiences and some coping strategies so that you do feel safe enough to go forward. But we'll never get into the processing piece until we have achieved that.
Mm.
There's also another piece that goes on with EMDR that even if you've been working with your therapist and you go forward with the EMDR experience, you're not going to go in your very first session instantly processing. And by processing, I mean having your eyes move back and forth or following a piece or being tapped on or, whatever components or ways that your therapist is going to get that bilateral stimulation with you. There is a setup that has to happen. And in that setup, it's really important in recognizing what are you working on and where is it tied to? So there's a couple of different techniques within EMDR that therapists can use depending on what their training level is that can look at traumatic experiences in different ways. So for myself, I am trained in your basic level of EMDR as well as EMDR 2.0. And if I can explain the difference of that, sometimes it can be helpful for people. Basic EMDR is where once you have built your relationship, your therapist has made sure that there's no concerns that would hinder your ability to be successful with EMDR, and that you are safe and grounded and have good skills. When they go to do it, they would help you create a bit of a timeline. So you would go to the negative belief that you hold about yourself, about the issue you want to talk about. So let's just say, for an example, I was in a car accident and I came to my therapist and I said, I'm having nightmares about this. I really need to work on it. Can we do EMDR? My therapist in basic EMDR is going to say, okay, sounds good. First, describe the situation that's bothersome for you. Tell me a negative belief you hold about yourself there. How strong is it? What would you like to believe about yourself and how true does that feel? So you get a little bit of a lay of the land around the situation that you're dealing with. From that moment, you might also then start to flow back and see if that experience, and particularly that negative belief you feel about yourself, does it come from anywhere else?
Yeah.
And you're going to float back to as far back as you can remember. So most of the time for folks, this is like 5 years old, maybe a little bit younger, kind of nonverbal pieces. It could even go back generations. And it could be the stories that you've been told about your lineage or the people in your family or how people are treated. Like it can be quite extensive in how far back it goes. And you find where the root of that belief stems from. And then you actually start doing the work on that belief. And so that's the first. And if I can explain it, the way it was explained to me, which I thought was so beautiful, is trauma is like an octopus. And you have to clean up all the tentacles before you can get rid of the body. And so we got to go to the first, because if we don't get to the first, we're just kind of dealing with little suction cups on one tentacle and we're not really getting anywhere. So you want to get to the roots. You do the first, then you do the worst memory related to that belief about yourself. Then you can float forward to the current concern, like the car accident. And then if you have any concerns about the future and how that might play forward with you, then you would do the future. So, and none of this is done in the same session. Please know, like this takes time.
Yeah.
And I always want people to know that we are not in a rush to the end. The gentler we go in this, the more successful and the faster it will be.
Right.
Right? So that is EMDR basic. EMDR 2.0 is more so focused on not getting so much into the nitty-gritty details and doing all the float backs, but it gets you to bring up the concern that's in the moment. You hold maybe the belief about yourself, definitely the image or thought, whatever is kind of standing out. And you do a really intense way of taxing your working memory in order to exhaust your brain as it is doing the work. So this might mean a little bit of physical movement in the office. So I get people to walk in a V in front of me. They're still doing the bilateral stimulation with the eyes. We might also be singing children's nursery rhymes or doing math. Like my job is to try and distract them from holding that image in their head. And their job is to try and hold it. And really, I should win because that means we both win. And that memory doesn't exist anymore. So it ends up making it a really fun game, which feels so counterintuitive to going to trauma therapy and dealing with something so scary and overwhelming. So they both have their place. And there are other techniques as well that lots of therapists are trained in other ones, but I'll speak for myself and what I have. And I like having both options because they both have a time and a place and a space, depending on the client and the concerns that they're coming forward with. So, it can be a really beautiful process, but please don't ever expect to do everything right in one or for it to be done in one, just because you're setting yourself up for so much pressure.
Yeah. Well, listen, a good girl, unlike me, I feel like my healing journey really started 2018. And sometimes I'm like, but wait a minute, I just wanted to just dive in and just do all of this stuff at once. And it's like, yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. Like my analogy I always use is there's an onion and I'm constantly peeling back layers, and because being in this space, I have to be okay with being vulnerable, right? But the healing journey has allowed me to become vulnerable. But like, even right now, there's some bits and pieces of mother wounds, right? From dealing with things from my mom that I'm still processing. I'm thankful I have the tools to help me to be able to process it, to see it from a different perspective and being able to look at, is it generational things? And it is. So, and a lot of times I don't think we realize that sometimes it is a program and it's a generational program. And so that's very, very, very accurate. So,
and I do just want to kind of highlight too, when we feel that urge to just fix it now and get going and just tell our story and have it be done, we run the risk of actually re-traumatizing ourselves because I don't know if anybody can relate to this in your audience or if you relate to it, but where you kind of like overshare to a space where you don't really know people and then you go back and you kind of feel vulnerable and like almost embarrassed for yourself or worried about what other people think of you. You know, that uncomfortable feeling of just having overshared or shown too much of yourself where you don't feel safe. I never want that to happen for people in therapy. And so by slowing it down, let yourself feel safe with me so that or you're a therapist, so that when big events come up or when these big flashbacks come up, you feel safe enough to come in and unload and you get to leave feeling lighter instead of worried.
Right. No, that's true. That's so true. Okay, so I'm going to can you explain the science behind the eye movements or other bilateral stimulation in EMDR and why is it so effective in reducing the emotional impact of the traumatic memories?
Absolutely. So part of the piece around bilateral stimulation and why it's so effective is because first, it inhibits our amygdala, which is our alarm system in our brain.
Okay.
And it's very interesting. So if you think of your brain like your fist, so this is like my spine, my hindbrain, my prefrontal cortex, that adult part right behind your forehead. In the inside of your brain, you have your amygdala and your hippocampus, and they live right by each other. Your hippocampus is your memory storage, and your amygdala is your alarm system.
Okay.
So anytime you experience a traumatic event, it is stored with all of its alarms into your hippocampus. So anytime you have a similar experience, a smell, a location, a sound, body sensation, those memories are going to get triggered in your hippocampus and it's going to go right over to your amygdala and say, hey, we're not okay. You need to protect us. Your alarm system's going to go off and you're going to get flooded, right? This is fight, flight, or freeze.
Right.
And in EMDR, the bilateral stimulation slows the amygdala so it can't start alarming, but it allows the memories to come up out of the hippocampus.
Oh, wow.
And so you have more space and grace to be able to process it. And
Mm.
when doing the bilateral stimulation, you're allowing the verbal and the nonverbal sides of your brain to start to communicate. So one side of your brain is responsible for language, and one side of your brain is responsible for memory in the sense of your emotions, your physical sensations, and images. So with trauma, what happens is they get stuck and their communication around the event is broken. And bilateral stimulation allows those pieces to connect around that memory and reintegrate to create a story. So I always love
Mm.
to tell people that our brains love complete stories. They need a beginning, a middle, and an end. And
Mm.
when we experience trauma, we are stuck in the middle and we don't
Yeah.
have the ending that is completed for ourselves. And so we replay it over and over again, trying to make sense of it, trying to complete that story. But because of
Mm.
the break between the two sides of our brain in the memory, we're not able to feel that. So the bilateral stimulation allows those two to communicate. It allows the ending to come forward. It allows to see that you survived, that you're successful, that you're here.
Mm.
And it allows that part of the memory to cool down and to
Mhm.
not disappear by any means. Like EMDR is not going
Mhm.
to take away your memories. It's just going to take away the alarm and the brokenness of it so that it becomes something you watch on TV and you can turn the channel or walk away. Like it's much more controllable and easy to deal
Mhm.
with instead of feeling controlled by it. Right. So bilateral stimulation, typically, like I said, with Shapiro, who developed it, it was done through bilateral stimulations of her eyes going back and forth. So in traditional EMDR, it's following a therapist's fingers, which can be great. And it also is very tiring on the therapist's body if you do this for multi-hours and not always wide enough. So there have been some great additions in the tech world for this where therapists can use light bars. So there's a light bar in
Mhm.
their therapy office and you follow the light going back and forth side to side. There are things called buzzies. So they're tactile pieces. They're things that you hold in your hand and they will alternately vibrate in your hands for that stimulation. You can also tap opposite sides. You might do this for yourself in the process. Your
Mhm.
therapist might do it with you. There's different options. And then you can also have audio. So you might have headphones or music playing that is stimulating either side of your ears in your experience. And so again, that is also another form of bilateral stimulation. Sometimes you have to use multiples at the same time to really ramp up in intense situations. And lots of times you can just do it with one. It all depends on the person, the memory, and the experience.
Now, this is kind of off topic, off of our questions that we had, and just out of curiosity, because when you brought up that the brain doesn't know the end is stuck in the middle, right, of whatever the experience is. And we talk about the art of manifesting,
Mhm.
okay? Do you think that sometimes the traumatic experiences is keeping you in that middle space and it does hinder you being able to get to that desired space that you want to get to? Or things that you might be trying to manifest. It can be anything. Do you think that there's a direct connection between the two?
This is hilarious. I just had this conversation today with somebody. So I love that this question came up. Honestly, I think they're in conflict with each other. So
I
if
think so
you
too.
really are throwing yourself in the belief of the universe and manifestation, and you
Mhm.
consciously are in agreement and you want the best and all that the universe and the world can give you, and you're welcoming that and you are manifesting it. But at the same time, you hold this negative belief about yourself or the world or others. That's a conflicting sense of beliefs or values that don't
Yeah.
work with each other. And so they are going to hinder one another. The manifesting might feel like discrediting of the feelings that you have and the beliefs you hold from your experiences. And likewise, the beliefs you hold are actually going to limit your ability to fully immerse yourself in the manifestation.
Yeah.
So there is a big component that, I mean, I don't know the research on it, but I just
Yeah.
can't see how they don't interfere with each other. And
Yeah.
so by
Yeah.
healing those pieces where you have negative thoughts or beliefs about yourself, others, or the world, and you can work on that and create change into a more positive or helpful statement around your experiences because you've come through the other side and you've worked on them.
Right.
the manifestation world, I just can't imagine that the universe wouldn't explode with
Yeah.
opportunity for you, because
Yeah.
you are now fully into
It
it
is. Yeah.
and able to accept all that the universe there has for you.
I agree. Yeah, I do think it is. I think again, you're stuck in that middle space, like you say, because you can't see, brain doesn't see the end, or you can't even feel the end because of what has occurred. It's like you're staying in that space. So yeah, that was just one I wanted to just throw out. It just kind of
Agreed.
came through as we were
Yeah.
talking. Okay, I'm going to pick two more
Love it.
questions, and
Love that.
I think this one was good because I think so. How does EMDR help individuals who are dealing with grief and loss and trauma? What aspects of grief that it targets, or is it all areas of grief? Just out of curiosity.
Yes, I love this question. And I get it, concerns about it often, being a grief and loss therapist, is if I do EMDR, does all of this go away? No. Grief is the most human emotion we could ever experience. And EMDR does not take away any valid or true emotions. EMDR is going to take away the beliefs that you hold, the thoughts that you have, or the emotions that are experienced that are not in alignment with the facts of the experience. And so with EMDR in grief, it is ideal to remove that last horrific memory that you can't get out of your head. And it's amazing to help work through the guilt and shame you might have that is not necessarily appropriate to the loss of somebody that's come into your life or has left your life. But it is not going to take away love. It's not going to take away the grief and the mourning that you have for the fact that the person or the experience in your life that is no longer there. Right? So I think about clients that I've worked with who come in and go, I feel crazy, like I'm having nightmares and I can't let go of this thing that I can't talk about because it's too scary. And I say, there's nothing too scary here.
Yeah.
And then they feel safe enough, and I'm privileged enough to know what that is. And I go, okay, you want to try something? And we give it a try, and all of a sudden it goes, oh, that was okay. Hey?
Yeah.
How does it feel? I'm not stuck thinking about that moment. I'm thinking about our life together, or that experience that I had and all the possibilities that we loved. And it gets to flow and it gets to move. And you just get to sit with what is really true and what you really need to sit with in the loss of something that no longer exists.
Can I just say, first of all, it's the safe space that you're talking about that just kind of, it's a difference. And I think sometimes people realize when you're talking to people, you have to be, you have to be gentle in this space. It's the way you say the safeness that I feel like gives people the comfort. So I can only imagine your clients. I would say, I just hope that they feel so safe and protected when they're with you, because just in this space that
It's
we're
so sweet of you
in,
to say.
it
Yeah.
is, no, it is. It matters because I think along the journey, people have just been jumped into so many different places, and there's so many different things that have happened. And the nervous system is all spinning a lot of shape. And that's one of the things, of course, with me in the trauma informed yoga space. Like I am the nervous system that's regulated right when they walk in. So it's how do you making sure you create that safe space for your clients when you're working with them, because at the end of the day, it's not about you, it's not about me, it's about them, and it's their journey, and it's getting them to the next space so they could live fully. So I just had to say that. Okay, and I lied. We got two more questions on here. Okay, two more questions, I promise.
Know this. It's okay.
All right. What are some misconceptions? And I say this because I think, and that's the whole purpose of this project, is I want to debunk any misconceptions that people have about healing modalities. I want to debunk all the misconceptions that people have about just alternative holistic living, period, right? Or even going to a therapist. Sometimes people, oh God, and it's like, it's not even what you think. And like you said in the beginning, it's finding that person that matches with you. Guess what? If you don't like a car insurance, you go somewhere else, right? And it's the same thing with a therapist. It's the you don't like what you're eating, okay? Don't eat it again. Go find something that you can replace it with. That's so. And I think it's the same thing. But I think as a society, there's so many misconceptions around things that we don't know about, and we believe everything that we've been told, and we don't question anything. And that's again the whole purpose of this. is I think people can look at me and they may be like, you, and it's like, yeah, like I believe in healing modalities. They have helped me like tremendously along my journeys. We're gonna get into the question, but I had to bring up misconceptions so the listeners know that I just want you guys to just test things out for yourselves. Stop believing what everyone says. And oh, this is always my theory too, David, is when people tell you something, ask them, have they tried it?
Yes.
They tried it. They tell you don't do this, but have they actually tried it? You know, people say, don't do this, but have you actually tried it and tell me don't do it?
Yeah,
See,
my
I don't know.
friend or so and so neighbor once did that and they said it wasn't good. Okay.
And it's, but
Did
have
you?
you
Yeah.
tried it? No, you haven't. And they probably haven't tried it either. It's another thing that's a generational thing. One person says it, this person believes it. They believe what that person says, and it continues on, and nobody never tries. I don't know. I'm the wild child. I'll try it. It doesn't matter. Like I'll live through it.
Same,
But
same.
anyway,
Yeah.
all right. So into the question. What are some of the misconceptions of fears people may have about trying EMDR? And how can you encourage trauma survivors to explore it as a healing tool?
Oh, yeah. So there are a list of misconceptions, I feel like, around EMDR. It's become very popular in the last, I don't know, 8 years or so. And there's this kind of sometimes blanket belief that it's for everybody and it's going to help everything. It's not. It is not for everyone. It is not for every topic. It is made for specific concerns. It works on specific issues. And we have to be in a space where we are able to process this. So EMDR is not going to work if we are actively using substances on a regular basis that are going to impede our ability to process. If
Oh,
I am so dysregulated and outside of reality, I am not going to have the best ability to come back and sit for a period of time and process specific experiences. So there is a component of recognizing that you are going to want to do the therapy that is right for you. And that might be figuring out what that is. It might be EMDR. It might be something different. You might not like the idea that you don't get to talk about all the details. Maybe you want to
right.
go through a different trauma therapy that is more somatic in body sensations and more communicative, and that's great. And for people who don't want to, maybe they'll try this. But it's definitely not for everyone. It is for a specific clientele. And it was made for specific concerns. So I want to make sure people don't think, oh, my therapy is supposed to be EMDR. It's not,
Right.
but it can be if it's appropriate. Um, Another one around that with being for everyone is sometimes you hear people say, well, like, I don't have post-traumatic stress disorder. So like, I don't need EMDR. But post-traumatic stress disorder, while originally developed for the idea of post-traumatic stress, it also works on anything with traumatic memories. It can be anxiety, negative self-beliefs, depression, dissociative disorders, right? Like it actually can do a variety of different things. You don't have to have experienced something so horrendous that you make a clinical diagnosis from a psychiatrist. You can just have a difficult experience and want to work on it, and it could still be successful for you.
Oh, wow.
Um, Another one is that, they think it's like this magic. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, if I do MDR, I'm going to have no memory of this, right? Like it's going to get completely wiped out. No, I wish sometimes, but that's not true because we don't want to erase a part of your existence and your story. What I do want to help do is take away the pain and the unnecessary connections that are hindering your ability to keep moving in life and having a full life. I want to take away the flashbacks, the nightmares, the somatic symptoms. So somatic is like body experiences. I want to help take away the negative beliefs you might hold around yourself because of what has happened so that you can move forward. Like I said, it's going to be a TV show on the TV that you can change the channel or walk away from, but it's not going to cease to exist. It still
Right.
will be a part of the story.
Right.
So
Okay.
there is a component of that. It's not going to go away, but it's just not going to be your day-to-day concerns anymore. It's going to be a
Right.
story that you can tell and walk away from.
Right.
Yeah. Some people think that they have to remember all the details and sometimes feel like, well, I don't know if I can do EMDR. Like this happened when I was really little and I don't really remember much when I was little. That's okay. Do you have a body sensation? Do you have a feeling or a thought, an image? did somebody tell you about this experience? And can you go from the story that you've been told? It doesn't have to be this big cognitive experience where you know and feel everything. It can be sometimes just little blips. I remember in my training being so amazed when they were doing a trial of it with one of the participants and one of the trainees. And the story went back to the story she was told when she was in utero. She has no memory of it, but it was
Right.
related to the story that she was told about how her family experience was around her as being pregnant and being the baby in the
Wow.
womb. And so you don't have to have all those details. They don't even have to be your details. They could be lineage details that have just been passed down. So
Mm.
it's okay. You don't need to know all of it.
Yeah.
And in the same sense, this is not hypnosis. Like EMDR does not take you out of your awareness of being in the moment. It does not put you in a type of trance. You are fully present and participating in the
That's right.
entire experience. And if you dissociate, your therapist will help you come back and to be able to set that. They will help you build skills to come back into the moments when the traumas are really big and intense and your brain needs a break. So, but it is not hypnosis. You are present here and you are participating. You are an active agent in your healing.
Wow.
Some folks think that EMDR is dangerous and can make symptoms worse. And I will acknowledge that in the sense that, yeah, when you're doing the work, it can feel really intense because lots of the times when we experience trauma, we are living our life trying to avoid everything that happened. And my job as a therapist in general is to shine a light on the things you're avoiding and help to heal them. If I wasn't, and if I was skirting away from them, I would not be doing my job and you should fire me. So part of EMDR is bringing your trauma to the forefront. And so, yeah, it is going to feel scary, overwhelming a little bit, might have a lot of anxiety around it, but you are only going to go as fast as you feel, and your therapist is there to support you. But it is not going to allow that experience to happen to you again. Right? We're never going to replicate that. It's never going to happen in the room. And your symptoms are not going to get worse from what they are in the moment, in the sense that you already hold all those symptoms. We're just allowing them to come and integrate. So it might feel at times that as you come to the peak of the integration, that it feels really intense. And that's fair. It's because your brain sides are totally communicating and now aware of the brokenness in the story. But as soon as they connect, that's where the concerns come down, because your brain goes, oh, I have the ending. Okay, I can move. And you keep going. So I do like to just highlight that. Yes, there is some validity to that, those concerns, but it is a misconception that this is going to happen for the rest of your life or outside of therapy. And again, your therapist is going to make sure ahead of time that you have skills to be able to lean on should you leave therapy and still feel emotionally vulnerable around those experiences. Yeah, I feel like there's quite a few misconceptions here. One is that it will create false memories. And no therapist in EMDR is in the realm of creating memories with you. They're just going based on whatever you have. And we're not in the industry of deciding whether those are credible or not credible. Are they impacting you? Okay. Do you want to work on them? Great. Let's work on them. Let's allow those to not run your life anymore. Whether they were true or not, some part of your brain interpreted whatever happened as that to be truthful. And so we're just here to help you heal that and move forward from it. Yeah, like I said, you don't have to talk about all the details of your memory. That's one of the misconceptions, that you have to be really detail oriented. And that people think that they're going to start processing on session one, and you're just not. It's going to take some time to set that up. But I think that's kind of all the misconceptions I can think of when people come with EMDR. Yeah.
All right. So one more question, and we will let you finish your afternoon. For individuals who are actively working on their mental health through yoga and other modalities, how can EMDR complement those practices and create a more holistic healing journey?
Oh, yes. I love this question because EMDR is a psychotherapy, and yet it is a holistic psychotherapy because it is bringing in your emotions, your body experiences and your mental experiences all together to be able to communicate them. And it's helping to integrate and have those communications going well and moving forward from what has been stuck. So I feel like it can be very complementary in the healing journey, because the work that you do in EMDR is the work you're doing in EMDR to remove the trauma and the experience of the memories. Whereas other modalities that you might be doing, like yoga, is going to be help to regulate your nervous system and help create another connection back with your body, and hopefully a more collaborative, kind, calm, compassionate way. And so what a beautiful space that EMDR can just take away the gunk, and then you can have that space to really heal the holistic part of yourself in a very gentle,
Right.
kind way in other ways as well.
Right. Oh, that's good. Okay. Well, that is all that we have for this episode. I am so honored and I am so thankful that Devin took some time today to come on to talk to us today about EMDR. I learned some things myself. Like I said, I've saw it before because I'm always in the mental health space. I'm a mental health advocate, I would say too, for sure. So seeing it, you for sure shed some light to help me also be able to understand it a little bit more. And we're going to wrap up. I will make sure to link Devin's information in the show notes so you guys can find her on social media. If you're in her area, I'm pretty sure she would love to have you as a client. So
As long as you want to do the work that I do, you bet.
I will make sure to link her information. Then I'll also link my information as well. I'm working with clients one-on-one in the trauma informed yoga space. And I am looking to work with you guys. We are here to empower and inspire you guys on your healing journey and offer support as much as we can. It has been a pleasure. We're so thankful and have a great day. Bye.